The Monday means test for Jamison Whiskey, triple distilled, twice as smooth, one of a kind. 7 games in round 12. Sometimes we can splutter a bit in the bye rounds, but the footy was exceptionally good. We paid our dues on Friday night for the right to the rest of the weekend, but we got it. David King, hello.
Morning, G. How are you? How'd the weekend go?
Can I share this from William?
Yes.
So this is previous caller, Rod, passionate Carlton supporter. Give them time, Gerard. I want to try to get the tone right here. Right. Give them time? 28 years, 6 number 1 draft picks, 7 coaches and 5 wooden spoons. Give them time, FFS. Emoji. Heartbroken.
I'm not even sure you can say that, but well done. No, I think he shares the passion of most. Yeah, it's a challenge, isn't it? When your team's really struggling when they probably shouldn't be, it's a real head scratcher. And we try and find reason, we try and find answers or logic or things that have changed or things that can possibly be changed. And that's why we make the calls we do. I get a lot of feedback on it. I haven't started, Gerard, and Jason from Sunbury's into me about who we're going to ride off this week or make the 8 or pump up. 180 degrees different to last week. Well, that's footy, isn't it?
Opinions changes, evidence changes.
Well, if you get it right at round 1, why are we playing 24 weeks?
Yes.
So,
your King's Gambit have been exceptional in recent times. What are you opening with today?
Well, I was going to say that 9 games is too many and 7's about perfect, but we're heading to 10, so I better not say that. So if you win the first quarter of games, you win 65% of games. Whether that be by 1 point or 20, you win 65% of games, okay? So of the weekend, despite the fact that we all think, gee, there was wild swings in games, which there were, Adelaide were ahead and lost, and the Dogs were ahead and lost. Outside of that, the other 5 that were ahead won. So if you just stick to the numbers. So Carlton and Melbourne, Carlton never led, right? They never led for the whole game, but the greatest margin was only 23 points. They were sort of in the game, even though it was an awful game to watch for the whole game. Port blew it away early, 42 points, game over. Collingwood led by 24. It was a classic McRae sandwich. Daniel Horns called this a McRae sandwich. Banked the win early, 24 points at the end of the first quarter. They won. They broke even in the second quarter. They won the third quarter by 2 points, and then bang, they won the last quarter by 6 goals. The Dogs kicked the first 2 goals, led at quarter time by only a couple of points. And for 100 minutes, for the first 100 minutes of the game, it was within a 2-goal margin. I mean, that's the footy we want to watch. That was an awesome game to watch. Yep. A real treat on Saturday night. The Tigers. Well, when Tigers were up by 24 points at quarter time, back to 13 at half time, GWS hit the front halfway through the last quarter. And at the 32-minute mark of the last quarter, they led by a goal. So that was just a cracking game to watch. Adelaide led by 35 points 10 minutes into the second quarter. Yes. 35, but it's a big lead, isn't it?
Yep.
And then 30 minutes of footy later, they've coughed up the lead. 9 unanswered goals to the GWS Giants. To the Gold Coast Suns. We haven't seen them do that before. So we're seeing new things. And I thought the Essendon and Kangaroos game was a cracker. Essendon led by 20 points at quarter time. And then again, 30-odd minutes of footy later, Kangaroos kicked 6 unanswered. And with 2.5 minutes to go, it's all square. So we had a great round of footy for 7 games.
Yep.
It makes me think that 10 games is going to be a punish, Gerard.
If we just managed to pull one out to the Thursday night instead of having the overlap on Saturday night. And that old cliche, you got to play 120 minutes of footy. You had to play a lot longer than that yesterday. As one of our correspondents pointed out, the last quarter in Sydney, Giants-Richmond, went 38 minutes, 29 seconds.
Yeah. Well, I had a look at that because I was surprised that at the 32-minute mark, the Giants were a goal up and managed to lose. And I'm thinking that can't be right. So I went and had a look. It's clearly because of the scoring, a lot of scoring, 7 goals to 5, so you lose minutes there. And a hell of a lot of stoppages. The most for the game, 28 for the quarter.
Right.
That's just shutting the game down, isn't it? I mean, Nankervis caused 4 himself in the last 2.5 minutes. He just laid his big frame on the ball. But no, it was a good round of footy, and those that enjoyed the spell probably, with neutral eyes on it, enjoyed it even more.
The big issue, I feel like the big issue is the Dogs, a team that aspires to be a top 4 team and have had it in their grasp over the past couple of weeks with the opportunity they opened up and either fumbled it or had it taken out of their grasp, whichever way you choose to view these things. So losing to the Suns in Darwin and losing to Geelong here. And it was just, Brad Johnson had the terms. He said it with Gerard and Kane. He said it on Friday Night Footy. If they're the team that they want to be, they had to get Geelong on Saturday night, and they couldn't. And you can feel the frustration bubbling through on the text.
Yeah. So to get back to Jason from Sunbury's point, it's hard outside looking in to work out why the Dogs are not a lock for top 4 this year, last year, the year before. It's not on talent, is it? I mean, they've got some superstar talent. So is it the way they play that leaves other teams in the game? Are they just not efficient with the ball? Are they just not playing the game that allows them to score freely? I'm not sure what the perfect goal is for the Dogs. I'm not sure what it looks like. In your mind's eye, what does the perfect goal look like for the Dogs? That necessarily doesn't involve a Bontempelli or a McRae or a Libert. Like, it's the system goal. What does it look like? I don't know if I can answer that with any clarity. I'd be sort of guessing. You know, I'm hot on them defensively. Their numbers stack up okay, and the general points against and all those sorts of things, they stack up okay. But as soon as Liam Jones is not a major factor behind the ball, it looks incredibly vulnerable. And then now they've got a problem with Ed Richards, who saves them time and time. He's a star, Ed Richards. As soon as he went off, I thought they're in real trouble here, real trouble. It was brilliant coaching by Chris Scott to set the game up the way he did. Lee Montagna showed that terrifically last night. They basically pulled all their half forwards up and left space in behind and charged back. I talk about the forward 50 efficiency of the Cats all the time. Just they know what the forwards want. It's like, you know that Hawkins is going to mark the ball boundary side every time. We talked about Fremantle covering that a couple of weeks ago. Great coaching, ahead of the curve. But they just have a way of just finishing 5 to 8. You know, I know they won it from 7th in 2016. And everyone will talk about that, but they are better than this. They are better than what are they now? What 7-5 or something? In my opinion, they're a better team than that. So why aren't they? Like, last man on the list is Liam Jones, really. He shouldn't be a major player in what they're doing here. I know he's experienced. I know he's got probably 2 years of footy left. But shouldn't it be others by now? I scratch my head with them. I'm not sure. I don't know if the Dogs fans have got more clarity than that. I look at Aaron Norton. He has one kick during the second and third quarters, and I go, "Wow, you're really maximising him." Like, Jeremy Cameron is a like type, and people say he's not. He's a different player than him, but it's a like position. Throw Norton on the ball. Throw him behind the ball. Richards goes down. Hey, let's just put Norton behind the ball for 5 minutes. You can't pack mark everything in the forward line anyway. Like, I know I'm banging on about Aaron Norton, okay? But he's prior to this round, I haven't updated the numbers just yet. He took 17 contested marks inside 50 and 11 uncontested. That's a shocking balance. That's you're basically just kicking the ball on top of packs and saying, Aaron, can you sort this out for us? I think Jamar is playing some really good footy and looks like he's about to go bang and take a couple of games by the throat. I like what Waitman does. He works so hard, but nothing comes easy for those guys. So they got problems, not irreversible. The season's far from irretrievable. It's a long year. We keep talking about that, but this has got to be a top 4 team.
So that's the point. Is that's what they haven't been able to do yet. It's what they set themselves up for. They fumbled the start of the season and then sorted themselves out. They go on their winning stretch and then, sort of right at the moment that it's there for them, they go into the top 4 if they beat the Suns. They can't get that done, and then, you know, plant your flag day against Geelong. It's Geelong who does it to them. That was the stand against the wall. Their main source of goals is an act of God. That's the frustration level that has built around them. And being there, that brought them undone time and again in the first half. The field kicking English was enormous in the game, but they didn't turn that into anything hugely advantageous.
He's the All-Australian ruckman, isn't he?
Yeah.
And Bontempelli's in the top 4 or 5 players in the comp.
And this is our conversation has been, and that breaks both ways, is they've had 3 of the top 5 players by ratings in English, Bontempelli and Liberatore, and yet they just can't seem to parlay that into the team that they want to be and we expect them to be.
So is it? So I guess the nub of the whole the question: what is it? What's missing? What's the restrictor? Is it simply that last kick inside 50? Well, it's been that way for a long period of time. This is why I say take Norton out there. Right? We every team goes through periods in their growth where they just become so predictable and going to the same target because he's your best target. Sometimes to the detriment of everyone else in the forward line. Norton's down there, he'll bail me out. I'll just kick a 55-metre kick into the top of the square because I won't get in trouble for that kick because that's just going to our best player. There's no way he's going to mark that ball. If he's not there and you lift your eyes and you don't see that big presence, sometimes you fish to find something else. And you can actually correct quite quickly just by not having that dominant target there. So I wonder whether it's time to just have a look at it. You've got Ed Richards not there. He's probably been their premier intercept player, certainly of the smalls. Liam Jones has been outstanding, and then it's Richards. If Richards is not going to be there for 2 to 3 weeks with hamstring, why wouldn't you have a look at it? You can't have a marquee player having 1 kick in 2 quarters of footy. And what he kicked the goal in the first probably 6 minutes of the game. He took a contested mark. He's on today. And you don't see him for another hour and a half.
Yep. Take Errol's tip as well. It's once you start to look for the number of times they have multiple players fly at the same ball. It's all I could see on Saturday night. Errol, it was amazing. What a canny insight that proved. They're our big issue, the Dogs, after round 12. The debate is for Syfe. Smarter investing, backed by the pros. Download Syfe. An incident like Jordan De Goey's is always emotive. It's emotive when it happens in an environment like Western Australia, although that didn't combust as much as it might have. It's a motive to look at from the outside and try to assess culpability and intention and then penalty. And that's all played out before us in the hours afterwards as to whether you think it's a weak act or a football action where you are in that scale. Some of that is academic, as it boils down to what price do you pay in such a moment. So what did you make of it, David King?
Just for me, it felt like the first time that everyone in football was accepting that this is no longer part of our game. So I think this is a significant moment that everyone's talking about. No, that's not part of our game anymore. He's decided to bump, he's hit the head or he's left the ground, whatever adjectives you want to put to it. I'm just thrilled we're here. That this isn't acceptable anymore. And you've got your head in the sand if you think it is. And there'll be a number, and I'm not sure what that number will be, whether it's 3, 4, 5. We're here. We're finally here. The first time I've felt like we are actually doing something about protecting the player from someone else who's acting outside of the code. Fractionally, marginally, split-second decision, all that stuff, granted, right? But I've heard for years, no, Jordan De Goey didn't mean to do that. So what he was doing was this, and what he was doing was that. I haven't heard that at all. So we're here now. And so the bar's been set. I think it'll be 4 weeks because I think 3 is the concussion tick is at 3, and then leaving the ground, it was a pretty vicious hit in the end. It becomes 4. The football world will live with that. There'll be no recourse, I don't think, from Collingwood. They'll accept it, get on with it. Similar to what Geelong did last year with Tom Stewart. Just take your whacks, move on. Don't complain, don't explain, keep rolling.
Yeah, it does put me very much in mind of the Tom Stewart incident from last year against Richmond. He got 4. I do feel like if that had happened this year, that there was a view that would actually start at 5 now, as sort of as the increased, the heightened awareness and the threat of what all this means long term, that might move to 5. I reckon it's it's just a half a peg below Stewart. I don't know. That's just intuitively how I feel. So if it was on last year's scale, I reckon it'd be 3. I wonder if this year's scale has it at 4, but it'll be one or the other, I think.
It has elevated, hasn't it?
That would be that instinctively, that's how I would feel. And I guess we're about to learn that.
So I think now, so we've won the war with the bump. Yep. Okay. So now the war flares a little bit. And this will be an adjustment period to the next phase. So if you put all the possible ways of getting concussion on a board and you went the highest percentages down, the bump's number 1. Most concussions would come from a bump.
Yep.
Bang. What's the second most? Sling tackle. So we've gone pretty hard at the sling tackle, but we've wavered a couple of times. The dump tackle, the one now that's absolutely marginal that people are still arguing about. Hey, get used to it. Work it out. Right? Play the long game here. This will be unacceptable in 12 months. So adjust now. And then what's next after that? We're just going to keep going down and down and down and down. And I for one, are thrilled that we can tick off box 1. Box 2 is going to take some adjusting. I still hear commentators make hundreds of different excuses as to why a player can end up with his face smacked into the ground and head trauma, but not enough to be concussed, so it's okay. He's fine. He's okay. We just roll on. No. The whole code is on notice regarding now the next 2 to 3 instances or actions that bring concussion.
Yeah. So Nathan Broad laid the worst of the dangerous tackles that we've seen this year and got 4.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like the scale has lifted and where De Goey could find himself.
I think
with
I
4.
asked for 6 with that one.
Yep.
Because I thought that was and people say, 6, that's ridiculous. But maybe I'm going too far one way to try and counterbalance the argument, and I accept that feedback. But I'd rather be there than not.
What will it do to De Goey? What would it do for Collingwood? Is this going to be a lengthy suspension?
Yeah, and we make a comment last night. I think he's worth 4 goals a game to Collingwood. He'll kick a couple himself, and he's the way he plays. He's that corridor runner. He's up and down the corridor all day, and they give him the ball as often as they can. He doesn't have to be the goal kicker. He puts players into space. He makes the correct decision every time in real time. At 100%, rat power, he's able to have the clarity to say, no, now's not the time to kick. Handball it back. I showed some vision last night of just how calm he is in a crisis. Now that's going to hurt them. Now they will probably replace the role, okay, and you'll probably see Crisp do more of that running, who's the same sort of player in terms of having clarity and being able to, he's not Jordan De Goey, but he understands that role. But the bottom line is there's not too many Jordan De Goeys kicking around in the back pocket to just throw into that sort of area. So it'll hurt them for a couple of weeks, and it just makes next Monday huge. If Melbourne want to be a top 4 team, they've got to win this game. So the margin's there, and we touched on Geelong. Geelong are waiting for a couple to just have a few hiccups along the way, and this is one of those games.
Alex's text through, it's not emotive at all, G. We can't measure intent. Intent is a psychological term that occurs in the mind. What we can measure is behaviour. The behaviour is he chose to bump, he hit his head, he concussed a player. This isn't our game. 4 weeks is the standard for that in the matrix. Good on you, Alex. 0433 98 11 16 40 Wings Temper text. Temper a mattress like no other. The pressure index, Carlton is living its year in the pressure index. Is the worst phrase we're just not good enough?
Well, it was damning, wasn't it? Gee whiz, of all the statements from the weekend, on and off field, that was probably the one that hit home the hardest. We're just not good enough. So it's been a long journey to get to a point where you're just not good enough. Like, you're talking about the list. Okay, there's a few on the sidelines, but there's a few on the sidelines everywhere. So we're just not good enough is a drop the hammer moment. So why are they not good enough? Is the next question. Yep. And I would love someone to have asked that straight away. We're just not good enough. Okay, Michael, why aren't you good enough? Is that talent related? Is that your leaders not leading? Is that your marquee players playing just average footy? Okay footy, reasonable numbers, get through sort of numbers, without being top liners. They got players that are 9 out of 10 players that are playing 7.5 out of 10 footy. So it's okay. But they don't bang the door down. I just want to touch on one, okay? So we watch the game really critically. So it takes a lot we're kicking 12 goals on average a team, right? So there's not a lot of moments where you get that pure play where you can kick a goal across 120 minutes. So when one of your marquee players, so they spin the handballs around, bang, ball goes to Sam Walsh. He's expected to turn, take territory, go out the front, take the available grass in front of him and execute and hit a target. Bite off the kick that others can't hit or don't have the imagination nor the vision.
Yep.
So right now, of all the midfielders in the competition, he's taking the third safest kicks in the comp. They can't afford for Sam Walsh to be a safe kicker. One of the two that's below him is a first-year player. So he needs to be, and at the other end, so just give a comparison. So he's going for kicks that are 53% likely to hit. So they're pretty safe for that sort of player, okay? The guys that are at the other end of the scale that are going for kicks that are 1 in 3, Clayton Oliver, Christian Petrarca, Shai Bolton, Darcy Parish, Chad Warner, those types of players, because you know what? They want to rip your heart out every time they get the ball. They want to be, and they say, okay, if I miss it, well, the team structure will save us because the team needs me to go for it. So they don't give Saad the ball. Walsh doesn't take on the absolute risk, and I know he missed some preseason, but we're round 13 next week. So we've had time to build in. It's not a fitness issue anymore. It's a decision to take safe rather than go for what the team need me to go for. And then you've got Paddy Cripps, who's not violent enough in traffic like he was the last couple of years. You never used to be able to tackle Paddy Cripps. Now it's almost a given that you can work off him. They're putting Bailey. He should see the players they're putting against him and say, how are they putting this guy on me? Yeah, so they're the things that irk me. And then we showed some vision last night. Third goal of the game, 9 minutes in. Lockie O'Brien doesn't go with his direct opponent, Neil Bullen, who snaps a goal, top of the goal square, the most basic of plays. And we've all done it, right? Where you drop off the man at the wrong time, and they kick a goal. It looks worse than what it is. It can happen quite easily, but not one person. In fact, they high-fived him. They high-fived him, and they'll say, "Oh no, this is part of the psychology of footy. You've got to move on quickly. You've got to, windscreen wiper approach." No, not right now. Now they've got to set some standards and got to be more critical of those that are not meeting what the team needs. Someone should have said, hey, mate, come on. No more, right? Have the discussion once. Player gets the feedback. You move on. You hope it doesn't happen again in that same game. Not one person said a thing. Now, Jacob Whitting's in the leadership group. He doesn't even call the group in and say, what happened there? Let's debrief. Because they're all thinking about themselves now. This is what losing does to you. It separates groups. So they're in real trouble. I still think we're not good enough. I don't know if that's accurate, and I reckon Vossi would regret that comment today, because I think they've got sufficient talent to be better than what they've been.
So this is going to be the big discussion for them in the last 4 weeks of the season, once they've accumulated all of their evidence, is do they have their group, and is it something else, or is their hand-picked group not going to take them any further than it's been? And so that's the long-term direction, isn't it? Is this the bump in the road, or is this the accurate reflection? No, all the best this group could do was finish 9th.
So when we started this little, whatever you call this, the means test, whenever we did, a few years ago. 6 years ago. One of the first things I said to you is you got to know where you're at.
Yep.
As a football club, the only thing you can get wrong is a false belief on where you're at. If you're still in the development phase, stay there. If you're still trying to build to a squad that'll take you, not through the middle section of the table, that'll jump the middle section, hey, stay there. And as soon as you're seriously good, then make those decisions around free agents and trading and get aggressive and give yourself a chance to win one in a 3, 4, 5 year window, okay? But you got to know where you're at. So as soon as you get it wrong, it's 4 years. It's a 4-year penalty. Kangaroos have got it wrong. Hawthorn have got it wrong. West Coast have got it wrong. Where are they now? So the teams that have sort of buggered it up across a period of time, that are stuck in the middle, that's the ultimate pain, because you really can't see the forest for the trees. So I don't know where they're at. They'll have a better handle on their list than us. But to say they're not good enough is alarm bells. So the decisions, you're spot on. The decision at the end of the year will tell us it couldn't possibly be start again, could it? It couldn't possibly be. They've had 100 number one picks for the last 10, 20 years.
Yep.
So I don't think it can be that. What do you think?
I don't know. So you have to be right in this assessment. It is with all the hand-picked pieces that they've added, if you've got those wrong, then it's not start again, but it is you have to prune some of the branches.
Prune. You a heavy pruner or a light pruner?
Well, I'd be a heavy pruner.
You're a heavy pruner?
Yeah.
Give me some heavy pruning you'd be doing.
No, not so. With 4 weeks to go, this is why you play 23 games. But I think they have to be on high alert now to make the exact right decision around the group that they've got. And that's going to influence what they do next. So this is the 6-week block that was identified for them. They've lost 5 of them. Now they play Essendon. And then they're going to run into teams that they really should be beating. So let's see what that looks like. And then with about 4 weeks to go internally, they're going to have to make the decision.
So just one thing we want to see. We want to see their marquee players play marquee football.
Yeah,
they're very good players,
play
very good football. They're role players, play your role. Let the order of command hold true to what your list is. If you're asking lesser players to be marquee, awful trouble. And that's where they are at the moment, I think.
They're about to play Essendon, so that's got something about it on Sunday night.
Oof.
I think sort of the open question is, what will Essendon amount to this year? So you got to win your close ones. We spoke about their stretch against the high end where they beat Melbourne and they weren't quite good enough without ever disgracing themselves against the high end. And then they came back to the set of matches that they could absolutely win. They've won 3 of them. They went the distance with Richmond. They went the distance with North Melbourne. I saw one of the pieces, we all cast our snap judgments and they were starting to talk about, somebody referenced top 4 and go, whoa. I think the assumption that they're going to run the table through their easy draw, they're going to have their trapdoor moments. I think that's clear. But what might they amount to?
It's a great question. And so we can be positive and we can be negative. I don't really want to get drawn into the negativity too much, but my overarching fear when I see game plans is what's going to work preliminary final weekend, what's going to work first final. There's no point Essendon getting to 6th, 7th, 8th on the table and getting hammered in a final. They've been there, they've lived that. So I worry about the control game, the marking game, where you do get some luxuries with the stand rule, and I understand all that. I know the game now probably favours it more than it has. So maybe I've got to adjust. But 120 marks again yesterday. They do give up some opportunity to the opposition. They allow you to move the ball. They allow you to go coast to coast. They don't really win the ball back between the arcs, the Bombers. They sort of are built about winning the ball back in their D50. So it's a bit of a dangerous method to that. So if you come up against a team that's good enough, they can get you. Kangas just weren't good enough. Their senior players just didn't know how to win that game for them or show the way late yesterday when the Essendon senior players, particularly the goal from the ruckman was just ridiculous. Just ridiculous. So those sort of moments say, hey, follow me, I'll get you over the line. Outstanding. I loved it. I love the big fella. I love when he just goes crazy after a goal like that. And then there was a couple of their other. Merritt was huge yesterday. I really am enjoying their leadership. I think they've absolutely nailed that. Zach Merritt has ducked to water as a captain. I don't know what he's like internally. I love their dare at times with the football is there. They can take you on. So let's see where it goes. Let's just see where it goes. But it looks like a club that's got rigid plan. Whether you like the plan or not doesn't matter. Every plan can win, every plan can fail. But they do have a system that they've all bought into, and it's probably the best Essendon have looked for a little while, in fairness.
Yeah, maybe a long while.
Yeah, well, a long while, yeah.
And I think the worst bit, when are the footy gods going to smile on Brett Ratton? He's one of footy's great servants. Keep doing this to him.
No, I think he had a great day.
Yeah, he's doing a great job.
Hey, Brett, keep doing what you do. They got the plan wrong early at stoppage, and that's a Wednesday error. That annoys me. That you allow Nick Martin to sit off stoppage by himself early in that game, unattended, in like a really aggressive position. And they kicked 5 goals from stoppage in the first quarter. And you say, oh, wow, what an opportunity missed. Yeah, and the next 40 minutes, they're all over them. I can't remember the last time Kangaroos kicked 6 goals in a row. Mate, I don't even know if you were born, Gerard, when that happened. But so there's a lot to like Wardlaw and Sheasel, and Ford does some things. Ben Mackay played a pretty solid game of footy. Again, good to see him back in a little bit of form. A lot's made about the age of these two lists. They're exactly the same. In fact, the Kangaroos are a fraction younger than Essendon yesterday. I know they probably had less games experience, the Bombers, but there's no problem with the Kangaroos youngsters. They're going places, Gerard. And the quicker you go past guys that don't show you the way when the time is there to win a game or give you that rock solid, hey, everything's okay, to calm the farm, you got to go past those guys. If they're 30 plus and not helping you win games of football, then they're gone. They're known as past players.
Yep.
So Aaron Hall let him down. Jack Zeeble let him down. There's a couple of others. They've got to take some responsibility for that, and I'm sure the club will.
Could you imagine 2 youngsters coming together like Wardlaw and Sheasel, who are so different? One's just the rough and tumble, one's Captain Immaculate.
One looks like a model, one looks like a beetle, Gerard.
I love the way.
Fantastic.
Their contrasts. They got that right. Gold Coast got its 2 weeks right in Darwin, other than one player oversleeping. Come on, Mac. We spoke about this. The difference between 4 and 8, losing against 2 fancy rivals and winning them both and being 6 and 6 and right in contention, and all the growth that comes with that. And hello, Jack Lukosius.
Yeah, hello, Jack Lukosius. But it's deeper than that. And I've been banging on about this crew for a while because winning's the last thing that comes. Right? So you got to get your house in order. They had to get their house in order last year, and they took some pain with the list decisions. And everyone laughed at them because they tried to get their salary cap in order, but they had to take some pain to do that. And it takes a brave club and a brave coach to say, yep, let's do it. He knew the pressure that was coming this year, so that's an awkward start to the 23 campaign.
Yep.
And then they start the season, and I was up there, so I saw the pain they had. They had no Weller at halfback, no Powell, and there were a couple of others missing that were potential halfback flankers. Those damaging types. The halfback flanker right now is the most damaging position on the ground. Now, people don't want to hear that. They don't. But Champion Data have done a ratings portfolio on who's created the most scoring, and it's that halfback roamer. He's not a halfback flanker anymore. He's a roamer. So the Dacos, Sinclair, Dan Houston types that roam, that are not standing next to their man anymore. They're halfback roamer / midfielder. So right now for the last 6 weeks, once the ball leaves clearance, the Gold Coast Suns are the number 1 team in terms of winning contest outside in general play. The number 1 team. That's an asset that can take you a long way in a final series. So once you build that, and once the players live this for a period of time, you become a bankable team week in, week out. If you start winning contest on the outside, we all laud what Matty Rowe's doing at stoppage. But I'm not even talking about that. So take that asset off the table. It's once the ball leaves there, they're winning it. So it's Ballard behind the ball. It's Powell behind the ball. It's Lukosius forward of the ball. Ben King, who they didn't have for 12 months, says this is what you've been missing. This is what you've been, and you've had to try and manufacture it with Chol and Casbolt, and they've had their moments and they've had their time, and Casbolt's been brilliant for them, but he's not Ben King. So when Ben King rears up and goes bang, I reckon the whole squad go, gee whiz, this is how good we can be, and it fuels itself. They bring Bailey Humphrey in, and they get that energy that only a youngster can bring, an arrogance that a young guy who knows nothing but being the best player or one of the best players in a junior comp, that just wants to kick goals, just wants to play footy, just wants to have fun. So everything's working for the Suns right now. So I say, don't worry about the coach. If you're not seeing it, you'll never see it. You'll always be upset about some coach. There'll always be someone for you to go at. But right now, it's not Stewie Jew, because I think they've corrected their profile on field, and their lineup now is really stable and really strong. Someone texted me last night. I think they got 3 players that they're getting as academy selections at the end of this year that are top liners. One of them's a power forward. His name escapes me, but they're only going to get better. So they're still very inexperienced. I think they were the second youngest team of the round. So they're doing things ahead of time. So just be a little bit patient with them. There'll be some bumps because they're still young, but their profile is super strong.
So they're 6-6. What should the rest of this year deliver for them? They've got 11 to play.
Yeah.
Their best season is a 10-win season, which they've achieved once under Guy McKenna and once after Stuart Dew. So it has to be progression on that.
Yeah.
But it's not the empirical make finals, is it?
No, it's not.
No.
I don't. It doesn't really faze me whether they finish 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th. You know, as long as they're playing the right brand of footy. And I think if they can improve a little bit with the ball, show us a little bit more of what you've got, like expand a little bit more, a bit more run and gun. Give us a profile that says if we do this, we score. I don't see that as often as you'd like, but if you continue to win contests, if they can be a top 4 team in clearance and contest at the end of the season or in the next 10 weeks, 12 weeks, then that's a huge win.
Yeah, and Lukosius, who was always he has been the source of frustration for his duration, really. Where was he going to be? Does he apply himself in the manner that he might? 5 goal bags 3 times during the year against quality opponents, and he has found his place.
He
now,
has,
hasn't he?
Yeah. I'm going to be honest. I thought he was a nice halfback flanker.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and I've said that to them, so I can't walk away from that. I've sort of said, just put him in it. Just stop mucking around. Just put him in a halfback flank, and let's just hope he can become, Guy McKenna, that type of player for you, which is still a very, very good player. But he's gone for. He does things that make you think: is that James Hird or is that Jack? The bodying, let the ball fall over the back. All the absolute top line. I have visions of guys come back. Like Darren Jarman used to do that. Body players just under the ball enough so they touch it and it's a soft drop. He does that all the time. His ability to get ball to boot quickly is a feature. So I'm rapt that Stewie's been able to stay strong. So there's a lot of strength in coaching him. This is where we're playing him because he needs to be this player for this football club. So they've gone through a few bumps with him, and now they've come out the other side.
They've got a lot right, the Suns, right now. The curiosity, this is a text. Geez, Crows do a lot of heavy lifting for other clubs selling their games. Ballarat, Tassie twice, Darwin and often Canberra for GWS. They played terribly, but do get all the odd road trips. I say I'm a believer in what comes last for a young team on the rise is winning away.
Winning away,
Yep.
yeah.
And they're just going through the growing pains of that. I think they're probably ahead of schedule, but winning away is the hardest thing to master, and it comes last. And that's actually when you're ready.
I should have done the numbers. I'll do them for you next week. Winning on the road for every team is tough. You're expected to win your home games, aren't you?
Yeah.
So if you're expected to win your home games, aren't you expected to lose your road games? Wouldn't that be logical?
Yeah, yeah.
So why are we so hard on teams?
You need to pick them off here or there.
Yeah.
And once you're 35 points up, that becomes, bank that game. But it's taken from there. It didn't slip through their grasp. It was brutally taken from their grasp. It's worth going back and watching that 25 minutes of footy.
So you got to win, what, 10 of your 12 at home, and then try and pinch 3 or 4 of the others. And if you can get 5, you're a top 4 side. That's what it's historically been. But it's hard to win 5 on the road, isn't it?
Yep.
So I think we're too hard on teams that travel. And really, when you look at your footy tipping, if you're tipping away, you think, what the hell am I doing? This is why I'm on the bottom road, Jerry. I'm falling in love too regularly with teams that are travelling. But you're right. Like, I think it's great for young teams to travel together, regardless of the result, because you need to have these shared experiences. You need to build a bond. You need to be invested in the guy next to you during the week so that game day there's an energy there and a passion. You can't just come together once a week with no real attachment and expect to perform with cohesion.
The other element I think that's worth remembering is a couple of players have made light of playing their old team recently and done it superbly well without incident. Isaac Rankin lived the opposite experience, and that's a very real experience. He didn't have his head on his shoulders against the old team. Now, whether it was something they did or whether it was just the overall, He's through that now, though. He's gone through it. He failed it terribly. That's okay. So next time around, be better against the old team. But it does, like Horn Francis didn't really skip a beat against his old team. It's a hard thing to do sometimes, especially when you're the one who did the runner. And I reckon that played out before us.
Yeah. And that's okay.
That's okay. I wouldn't be hugely condemning of that.
He's been so good at the start of this year. He's earned a lot of credits, hasn't he?
Yes.
I was concerned about him going back. I was concerned that this would happen at the start. Then all of a sudden you got pressure coming from everywhere. Like Luke Jackson had to live an unbelievable first month of footy, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then come out the other side. So he's had the reverse. See if he can gather and go again at home.
Night in a row for Ken Hinckley. It's a club record. They became just the second team in 10 years to put 100 points up by halftime. It was the best field kicking you'd just about ever see. The most perfect day at Adelaide Oval. It earns them a place in PFI, Preliminary Final Integrity, David King.
Well, they're undoubtedly the best clearance team in the comp last, on his winning streak. The passing of the baton to the young crew has seen Butters, in my opinion, become the best player in the comp right now. Rosie was probably one of the challenges that he had to go past. He's probably in the top, he's somewhere between 6 to 10 in the top 10 players in the comp. And Horn Francis is just still building his craft, but does some things where you go, wow, that's pretty special, as you'd expect from that sort of player. So they got the group of the Incredibles, the three of them, they're just gonna run the course, So plus just over 2 goals on their opposition week to week, it's a huge starting point. And then when you see their ball movement, so from the back from the D50, so the absolute shallow end of the pool, they've gone the full length in that. They kicked 7 goals 4 from D50 on the weekend. Now that is ridiculous, isn't it? So the AFL average is you go from D50 to inside 50 1 in every 5 times. It's the hardest thing to do in footy is move the ball. They were doing it 2 out of every 3. So from 1 in 5 to 2 in every 3, it's just crazy. I thought their biggest win for the day was Todd Marshall. So he'd kicked just 7 goals since round 1, but then he went and banged 5 home. And I just like the way he comes at the ball carrier. When his confidence is up, we know what he can do with his foot skills. He set up goal after goal, and he converts when he gets the opportunity. So he's the perfect forward for you, really. He took 10 marks. 7 of those were inside 50, which is a personal best. Now, I know they were given some luxuries by a really poorly organised and represented team in that first half. So you've got to capitalise. But a good team makes you look really average when you're just off. And they did. They brought the ball through the corridor. I don't know if they can do that against the rest, Gerard. But if they do, it's going to be exciting. It's going to have a day where it's all going to go wrong. And they're going to take on kicks that they shouldn't. But Burton, Farrell, Houston, they kick the ball flat and it gets through the air quickly. Pepper the same. They just spear the ball. So if you've got your positioning wrong as a defender on one of their forwards, it gets to them before you can correct. So I think that's Ken. I think that's Ken saying, no, we're going for it. So the Sam Walsh discussion we had earlier, no one's doing that at Port. And Zach Butters is bringing all the tricks out now. I'm not going to kick it until I'm absolutely ready to kick it. He ran around a couple on Saturday that just made them look second rate because he can do that. So I was quite taken aback by the performance. I just would like to see him do it against a contender, and we get a look at that on Friday night, whether you think the Dogs are a contender or not. We get a look at it. So I'm excited to see whether this is actually them.
Yeah, so they've been slogging away in heavy, wet conditions. So the Richmond game, the Melbourne game, the Bulldogs game, and then presented with something pristine. It was electrifying. So interesting and they get the rematch with the Dogs, way ahead of time as they played in Gather Round and they play again in round 13. Then they've got Geelong and then the bye. So they're 2 high-end fixtures from such a great position of attack now.
Yeah. So what's your read on them? Where do you have them?
So they're in my 3.
They're in your 3.
Yeah, they're with. So I've got Collingwood just a smidge ahead of Brisbane and Port Adelaide. But I think Port are doing more with less. at either
Doing
end.
more with less.
I think they have a stacked midfield, and they've been so clever with what they've been able to cover up forward while they've had absences. I'm still not sure that I don't think Charlie and Todd Marshall is what the Lions have got set up front. Collingwood make it work so well with Myercheck, who I think we admire enormously. They don't have the same weapons down. I don't think Port have the same weapons down back that Collingwood have. So, yeah, I think they're not as complete as the other two, but they've just dialed up as well as what we're seeing, and that there had to be the transfer to the new group. They've just dialed up something. They've got that beautiful intangible running through them.
So season's end, we're doing a little bit of. You were doing some heavy pruning early. I'd like you to go. I'd like you to go the other way. I'm not sure what the opposite of pruning is, but if you had your choice of acquiring Ben McKay or the boy from the Bombers at halfback, Mason Redmond,
yep,
which would you choose if you were Port?
I think I would choose Mackay. I think you need because Jonas is at the end. And you don't want a Lear to be too locked down. So I think I would go Mackay and get the key post.
That's what they've been able to do. They've been able to land players in the off-season like Lear and Burton and Finlayson, and it's made such a difference.
It has. Seedings for Tyre Power, tipping winners on tyre safety all season. It's important not to overreact in the bye weeks, isn't it? Because you leave them in the sheds. So we had Brisbane in the sheds, you had Fremantle in the sheds over the weekend. So are you going to hold? I'm holding. Are you holding?
You're holding.
Yeah.
I don't like when you hold.
So Melbourne are at 4. I don't feel like I learnt anything on Friday night other than they had to make sure they won that. So I'm super excited for Monday, obviously, next week.
I'm Fremantle at 4. I had them in there last week. I can't drop them when they don't play.
Port Adelaide 3. It could easily have slipped them up to 2, but that'd be disrespectful to Brisbane.
No, I've gone Port at 3, but I do think there's a big gap between 1 and 2 to 3 to 4. So the top 2, fair separation for me.
Yeah, so you haven't got Port nipping.
They're 3,
at
but
the heel.
But there's a small gap to 2.
Brisbane at 2?
Brisbane at 2, and you could easily have them at 1, really. Collingwood at 1.
Collingwood at 11 and 1. So this would be is this your first playing game? If Melbourne beat Collingwood, you'll have to play them in, won't you?
Yeah, no choice.
Oh, the playing game. Welcome.
I like it. I like what you've done. And what about the Dogs and Port? Port, Melbourne, Collingwood. So how do we 2 playing games, is it? Is that
I don't think the Dogs would be in my 4 if they beat Port, but it might Port.
Well, you're in love with Port. If they beat Port, you'd have to give a little bit, surely.
Yeah, I would. If Melbourne beat Collingwood and Port, anyway,
there's no rules with yours.
No, it's just gut feel and. Well, mind you, if you won 9 in a row, you should feature prominently in the seedings.
At 3
as a measure.
Have we got them too low?
Maybe we do.